Welcome back to Switzer. The US recently announced plans to cut greenhouse gas emissions by 28% in 10 years from the 2008 levels. This has triggered fresh demand for carbon offsets. To help meet the growing demand, Climate Friendly has launched 2 renewable energy certificates that offset carbon for companies operating globally. They're also the first carbon offsetter to help companies track and calculate and offset carbon emissions from global travel using the highest standard offsets. To tell us all about this carbon stuff and could it be dead in the water following Copenhagen's debacle, we have the CEO of Climate Friendly, Freddy Sharpe. How are you, Freddy?
Good, Peter. Thanks for having me on the show.
Oh, great pleasure, mate. This is a big issue, but since Copenhagen, a lot of people think, climate stuff is all rubbish.
Sure.
It's dead in the water. Is that true?
Not at all. Copenhagen was on many levels a disappointment, but as always we look for the silver lining inside the clouds. And I think we had ambitious expectations of Copenhagen, but we did get 160 heads of state to agree for the first time in history that man-made climate change is a big issue and that we should limit its impacts to less than 2 degrees centigrade. Were there binding agreements? Not at all. Will it happen this year? Probably not. But the message from me from Copenhagen is that it's up to all of us to fix this. Consumers and businesses and investors to come together and do this, and that's happening at large scale around the planet.
Well, every time people tell me, it's all, the science can't be trusted and all that sort of stuff, I keep saying, well, that might be true, but it seems to me a lot of consumers around the world have an enormous faith in the fact that we've done the wrong thing by the environment for a long, long time, and it's now time to get sensible. That's why recycling's popular, and that's why people, until Prius had its braking problems, people wanted to buy Priuses and things like that. So all that sort of thing, Freddie, put us in the picture. How realistic will industry be in accepting the sort of things that you're doing, for example?
Sure. It is all about risk management. You're quite right. If you wait until the science is proven, it's probably too late. This is about managing risk. And right now, companies and businesses and organizations and governments are acting because they know it's about managing risk. In America now, we have all the regional states banding together and forming local cap and trade schemes. We have new business models looking to, for example, roll out electric car infrastructure.
Well, a cap and trade scheme is like an emissions trading scheme, isn't it?
Absolutely right. But they're doing it below the national government level. Below the federal level, governments are acting. In India, they have enormously aggressive targets at government level for solar power generation. Around the world, in my industry, voluntary carbon, companies are acting voluntarily. They know it's the right thing to do. They know they get benefits from it. They're buying renewable energy. They're buying carbon offsets. We have a whole host of activity going on, and there is a lot of silver lining amongst the clouds of gloom.
Why does a company buy a carbon offset if they're not made to do it?
That goes to the very heart of the voluntary carbon markets, because you're quite right. Why would anyone act voluntarily at their own expense? And there's really 3 reasons companies and individuals do it. Firstly, to show leadership in your community, leadership in your industry. And for companies, leadership means brand differentiation.
And marketing.
We're seen to be taking a lead and we're acting sustainably.
BP pushed BP.
Absolutely right. Many companies say this is a real investment in our brand. If we want to be shown to be leaders on acting sustainably, buying carbon offsets and buying renewable energy is a way to do it. Secondly, it's about anticipation. There will be eventually a carbon price in the market. Companies now want to build the skills to measure and manage and reduce their emissions. And thirdly, there are many stakeholders, investors and customers and employees are saying, you must act and act now. So companies are in large numbers.
There's like a market demand for it as well.
Absolutely right.
Look, and we know there's enormous differences between what Mr. Rudd's offering in terms of a green policy and what Mr. Abbott's offering, but they've still got green policies, haven't they?
Indeed, no one's saying we shouldn't do this. Now, I go back to Copenhagen. Global leaders agreed for the first time in history this is an issue we need to address. How we do that is where the debate's moved on. And frankly, people who believe in the need for climate change action have been very quiet, and all we hear now in the marketplace, we've left the floor open to the skeptics, the deniers and the naysayers, and that's all people hear. We have an obligation, I think, to step back into that and have an informed, intelligent debate about why climate change is real and how we should act.
Okay, Freddie, let's answer a few simple questions like what are renewable energy certificates?
Sure. That's a great question. A lot of people already buy renewable energy certificates. In Australia, there's a very good domestic program called Green Power. Now, obviously, when you buy renewable energy, you can't guarantee the electrons into your house have come from a wind farm, say. What you hope to ensure is that somewhere in the grid, an amount of renewable energy has been generated on your behalf and fed into that grid. And secondly, you'd hope that the emissions related to your power consumption have been reduced or eliminated by clean, new energy. So you're not necessarily buying the electricity, but but you're certainly buying the investment in additional renewable energy.
Okay, when you buy a certificate, what happens?
That investment is in effect aggregated up and powers the capital needs of new renewable energy plants. Renewable energy is very expensive compared to conventional coal-fired power. It's often 2 or 3 times the price per megawatt hour of generation. So it needs extra revenue to get those plants built. So companies like mine and other retailers will aggregate demand from consumers, corporates, residential households, small businesses, and invest that money into renewable energy projects.
And so if I bought, say, $1 million of renewable energy,
Sure.
What do I get out of it?
Well,
apart from feeling good at night?
That's very important. You'd feel good at night. You'd have absolute certainty through auditing processes that is an additional investment in renewable energy.
Is it a tax-deductible cost?
It's an operating expense, absolutely. Renewable energy certificates for an industry are tax-deductible, operating expense. You would know which project you had invested in, and you would be able to tell your customers and your stakeholders, your investors, what you're doing and how you're doing it.
So it's a big marketing bang for your buck as well.
It's a very important message, and the more people act, the more people will follow them.
Yeah, and I guess if you're in a market space where people would care about, like if you imagine a product that was designed for greenies, they would love to know that your company did that sort of thing.
Absolutely right.
Okay.
And many companies are concerned not to be seen to be making claims they can't support,
Yeah.
because they will get pinged. There's an entire
The ACCC is watching that, isn't it?
ACCC and consumer groups are saying, if you tell fibs, my friend, we will find you out.
So how do you help companies track their carbon?
That's really at the very heart of what we do as a business. And Climate Friendly has been around for 5 or 6 years, so we're a real battle-scarred veteran. And we work with companies, large and small, and not-for-profits and NGOs, to firstly measure their carbon emissions, and then B, reduce them, and if they can't reduce, to offset them. And all of that data is tracked. All of the offsets they purchase can be tracked in public registries. They're audited by third-party auditors. Everything is transparent as possible, so they know that the money they're spending, because no one's making them spend money, is having a real and meaningful impact.
Does government have to accredit you to do that sort of thing?
It should, because like any new market, there are cowboys, and caveat emptor isn't enough. We want to protect people and encourage them to act voluntarily. So the Australian government has now rolled out the new National Carbon Offset Standard, which actually endorses everything we've done for 6 years, and other companies coming to the market can have comfort that that standard exists.
So you've created a thing called Global Travel Offset Carbon Emissions. What the hell is that?
That's a lovely collection of words. The product is really
Flight Portal.
Flight Portal.
Okay.
We exist to do 2 things: to encourage companies and individuals to act voluntarily, because no one's going to make them do it, and then secondly, to make it easy for them to do that. Take away any barriers to acting and give them lots of choices. If you have 5 choices, you might pick one. One choice, you may not like it, you do nothing. So Flight Portal takes away the pain of collecting data. Large companies have large footprints from their business travel, and it's monumentally painful to get that data. How many flights were taken by whom? How do I get that? My emails, I go to my travel company. At the press of a button, literally, with your permission, we can go to the global flight booking system, Sabre, Amadeus, Galileo, suck out your data.
How many kilometres you fly?
How many kilometres, how many tonnes of carbon, and what it costs to offset.
Scary,
like
that. Scary, mate. It's scary for some people who fly it like me. What about Gold Power? What's that product?
Gold Power is a global renewable energy scheme. So many schemes exist around the world, but nearly all of them have problems in terms of, can you be sure this is new investment or existing investment, and can you be sure that it actually reduces emissions? This is the only global scheme. It guarantees both of those. Many corporates like it because it also is reportable against some of the voluntary reporting standards. Companies want to promote what they've done. They're doing good things, promote it. This is fully reportable, and most importantly for us, it's actually been developed with WWF, the World Wildlife Fund. They're one of our biggest partners globally, and they've endorsed this as a credible global solution to renewable energy investment.
How big is the company now, Freddy?
We're still modest in size. We've got about 12 full-time people. We've been around for 5 or 6 years, and now I'm happy to say we're trading very profitably and growing very swiftly. It's a great business to be in.
If Copenhagen was an unbelievable success, would you be thinking, how long before we list?
There's always the option of listing down the track. No one wants. We don't do this purely because it's a good thing to do. We need to grow and be profitable to get bigger and reduce more emissions. Listing or any other liquidity events are always an option down the track.
So in a sense, pollution businesses 25 years ago, people said, why would you have one of those? Well, people care about pollution nowadays, and there are consultancies. So basically, you're in a space where there's a lot of potential growth.
There's a whole lot happening, and we were 5 years ago ahead of our time, and now we're leading the curve. It's great.
Great stuff, man. We've got a very interesting viewer